Have you ever stopped to think why, despite everything we achieve, it never seems enough to make us truly happy? What if I told you that the relentless pursuit of happiness might actually be ruining your life? In a world where we're constantly pressured to seek more, reach the next milestone, and chase a happiness that always feels out of reach, Stoicism offers a different path. It teaches us that true happiness isn't found in external pursuits, but within ourselves. Instead of chasing happiness, we can learn to live fully and fulfilled by focusing on what truly matters. In this video, we'll explore how the teachings of the great Stoic philosophers can transform your perspective on life, what really matters, and how to find fulfillment in a world that's always telling us to seek more. You'll discover how to stop chasing an illusory happiness and start cultivating a life of true inner peace. By the end, you'll see that true fulfillment is within your reach, without the need for more things, more achievements, or more validation. Get ready for a transformative journey. At the end, I want to hear from you. How can Stoic philosophy change your perception of happiness? Share your thoughts in the comments. And don't forget to subscribe to the channel and turn on the notification bell to keep learning with us. Let's build a more meaningful and fulfilling life together. The relentless pursuit of happiness seems like a natural goal. From an early age, we're encouraged to seek happiness, whether in material things, relationships, or achievements. But what if I told you that this constant pursuit is often sabotaging your true fulfillment? The Stoics teach us that by focusing solely on achieving happiness, we end up creating a dependency on the external world. Have you ever noticed how a small negative event can ruin your day? Maybe you've felt frustrated when, after reaching a goal, you still feel a kind of emptiness. This happens because happiness based on external circumstances is, by nature, fleeting. We're on an emotional roller coaster, always chasing something that's inherently beyond our control. Stoicism, on the other hand, invites us to look inward. What can you truly control? The answer lies in your mind. It's not external things that define your happiness, but how you respond to them. This doesn't mean ignoring pain or difficulties, but understanding that your inner peace shouldn't be threatened by what happens outside of you. As Epictetus said, it's not the things that happen to us, but how we react to them that affects us. So, instead of getting lost in external pursuits, true fulfillment comes from mastering the mind, emotional detachment, and the ability to face life with serenity. Happiness, therefore, isn't something to be chased, but cultivated in every moment of our inner journey. And this is where true freedom comes in, the freedom from depending on external happiness. When we stop chasing a happiness that always seems to slip away, we begin to find a sense of completeness. The constant pursuit leaves us exhausted, always searching for something we often already possess within. By looking inward, we become stronger, more fulfilled, more aware. But the path to true happiness, independent of the fleeting, is deeper than that. And there's more we need to understand about how the mind works in this process. Let's explore that in the next section. When we think of happiness, it's easy to fall into the illusion that it's out there waiting to be found, in people, success, or possessions. But what if happiness, as we understand it, is just a myth? The Stoics teach us that happiness doesn't lie in chasing pleasure or avoiding pain. Instead, it's the result of a life lived with virtue, self-control, and self-awareness. Maybe you've felt trapped in a cycle of constantly seeking more money, more recognition, more things, in the hope that these would bring the happiness you long for. But the more you seek, the more it slips away. It's like trying to hold water in your hands. It slips through your fingers. With their profound wisdom, the Stoics propose that true happiness isn't an end to be achieved, but a state of mind to be cultivated. They teach us that true joy comes from practicing virtue, the ability to maintain emotional balance, clarity of purpose, and detachment from what we cannot control. Happiness, therefore, isn't something you find externally, but something you build from within. By living according to Stoic principles like moderation, wisdom, and self-control, you no longer need to rely on external circumstances to feel fulfilled. Momentary pleasure becomes less important because you discover that inner peace and contentment need no justification. Imagine for a moment what your life would be like if you no longer needed external approval, visible achievements, or validation from others to feel good about yourself. Happiness would become a natural consequence of your behavior and thinking, not something to be conquered at all costs. This is the true power of Stoic philosophy. It frees us from the illusion that happiness is always out of reach and reveals that it lies within us, waiting to be discovered and cultivated. Now, the next step is to understand exactly how we can seek this state of inner tranquility. We'll dive into that in the next section. In today's world, we're constantly bombarded with the idea that happiness lies in external things: the car you drive, the house you live in, the dream vacation, or even the number of followers on social media. But if you look closely, you'll notice these things rarely bring lasting happiness. They might offer momentary pleasure, but like sand slipping through your fingers, that pleasure fades with time. So where is true happiness? The Stoics' answer is clear. It's not out there in the things you can buy or the people you can please. It's within you, in how you approach life and the choices you make every day. The path to true happiness, according to Stoic teachings, begins with understanding that we are responsible for our inner peace. Everything you truly need to be happy is already within you. Happiness doesn't come from others' approval, a bigger paycheck, or social status. It comes from your ability to stay balanced, cultivate self-control, and live according to your values. Instead of looking outward for satisfaction, the Stoics challenge us to look inward, to our own heart and mind, and find what truly matters. By doing so, you'll realize that, contrary to popular belief, happiness is more a process than a destination. Imagine what your life would be like if you let go of the need for external validation and started cultivating your own happiness, based on self-awareness, virtue, and emotional balance. This kind of happiness is solid, unshakable, and independent of what happens around you. It's a happiness that comes from within, growing as you align with what's most meaningful to you. This is the path to true personal fulfillment, what the Stoics call a life in harmony with nature. Now that you understand this concept, it becomes clear how the relentless pursuit of external things is not only unnecessary, but a distraction. Next, you'll discover how to abandon this pursuit and focus on what truly brings peace and balance. The relentless pursuit of happiness can be exhausting, and ironically, it often pulls us further from true inner peace. We're taught to chase the next big achievement, expecting it to bring satisfaction. The problem is that with each new accomplishment, the feeling of happiness fades quickly, leaving an emptiness that soon demands to be filled by another desire. This endless cycle leads to a state of constant dissatisfaction, where we're always moving but never truly arriving at lasting contentment. Stoicism teaches us that inner peace doesn't come from seeking something external, but from accepting what is. By embracing reality as it is and learning to control our reactions, we begin to discover a tranquility that persists even in difficulties. Epictetus, one of the great Stoic masters, said, "Do not seek for things to happen as you wish, but wish for them to happen as they do, and your life will be serene." This phrase reveals a powerful truth. Inner peace comes not from fighting against what we cannot control, but from serene acceptance of life's circumstances. This doesn't mean resignation or passivity, but an active way of living that allows us to maintain tranquility, no matter what happens around us. When you start practicing emotional detachment, you notice that the suffering caused by the constant desire for more begins to fade. It's not about denying your dreams or desires, but finding balance and contentment in the present moment without depending on external factors to feel complete. The practice of acceptance, rather than relentless pursuit, is the first step toward achieving the inner peace so valued by the Stoics. By living according to Stoic principles, you begin to free yourself from the pressure to always seek more. Peace comes from within, rooted in self-control and awareness of the present moment. It's not about eliminating desires, but understanding that true happiness is built through the consistent practice of virtues like wisdom, courage, and temperance. As you follow this path, life becomes lighter because you learn to live with less haste and more presence. But this true emotional freedom, which comes with acceptance and balance, has much more to reveal. Let's explore that in the next section. We live in an era where instant gratification is almost the norm. With a click, we get what we want. With a swipe, a moment of pleasure. But what happens when that fleeting pleasure isn't enough? When the shine of the moment fades and we find ourselves once again searching for something new? Stoicism offers a radically different perspective. Instead of seeking instant pleasure, it teaches us to embrace the process of soul maturation. True fulfillment isn't found in small doses of pleasure, but in building a life grounded in virtue, self-control, and meaning. Instant pleasure is an illusion that keeps us trapped in our own emotions, while lasting happiness, which transcends life's ups and downs, is born from discipline and constant reflection. Instant gratification, as shaped by modern society, deceives us by creating a false sense of happiness. We think buying something new, enjoying a party, or receiving praise will fill the void, but soon we realize the void remains. The Stoics, in contrast, invite us to seek satisfaction in something deeper, the inner peace that comes from mastering our own desires. They believed that pleasure, when pursued excessively, diverts us from true happiness, which lies in mental tranquility and alignment with our principles. By cultivating virtues like wisdom and moderation, we begin to realize we don't need more because we are already complete. Living a life of true fulfillment doesn't depend on satisfying momentary desires, but on building a solid foundation that provides emotional stability to face adversities with serenity. True happiness comes from the daily choice to live according to our deepest values, not from the immediate consumption of pleasures. This path to true fulfillment isn't easy, but it's lasting. As you follow it, you start to see that life becomes richer, more meaningful, and more fulfilling. By freeing yourself from the illusion of instant happiness, you realize that what you needed most was within you all along. Now it's time to explore how we can transform our lives by focusing on purpose and virtue instead of the relentless pursuit of happiness. It's easy to fall into the trap of believing that the purpose of life is to be happy. Modern society urges us to chase happiness as if it were a prize waiting at the end of an endless race. But what if true fulfillment isn't about seeking happiness, but finding purpose? Stoicism teaches us that instead of chasing fleeting happiness, we should seek a greater purpose. Happiness, as the Stoics point out, is a byproduct of living a life aligned with what matters most to us. It doesn't need to be pursued directly. By living with purpose, we are naturally filled with deeper, more lasting satisfaction. Purpose is what gives meaning to every moment of life. It guides us even in tough times and keeps us from getting lost in the emptiness of external pursuits. When we find something greater than momentary happiness, we begin to see life from a new perspective. Stoicism teaches us that by focusing on virtues like wisdom, justice, and courage, we are shaping our character and building a legacy beyond personal satisfaction. Happiness, then, becomes a byproduct of this virtuous life, not an end to be achieved at all costs. By living with purpose, you don't need to rely on happiness to feel fulfilled. You're already doing something meaningful with your life, and that's enough. However, the journey to find this purpose isn't always easy. In a world that distracts us with promises of instant gratification and superficial success, it takes courage to look inward and decide what truly matters. A life of purpose requires discipline, and this is where Stoicism comes in. It teaches us to cultivate self-control, constant reflection, and patience so we can align our actions with our deepest values. By doing so, we discover that purpose, when lived with intention and clarity, becomes our greatest source of fulfillment. And by seeking purpose, you'll understand that true happiness, far from being a goal to achieve, is a natural byproduct of this pursuit. In the next section, we'll explore how the Stoic mind helps us develop the inner strength needed to achieve this fulfillment. The human mind is a battlefield where desires and emotions often try to dictate the pace of our lives. In the relentless pursuit of happiness, we can easily get lost in the emotional roller coaster of highs and lows. But what the Stoics teach us is that true freedom comes from self-control. It's not about suppressing our emotions or desires, but understanding how to manage them so they don't dominate us. Self-control, for the Stoics, is the key to inner peace. By developing this skill, you no longer need to seek happiness from external sources. Happiness becomes a natural consequence of the serene, balanced mind you cultivate. Epictetus reminds us in his teachings that the only control we truly have is over our own minds. External circumstances, what others think or do, are beyond our reach. What is within our power and where we can exercise real control is how we choose to react to these situations. This ability to control our minds is what makes us truly free. No longer hostages to life's ups and downs, we can maintain calm and clarity no matter what happens around us. Self-control, then, isn't a restriction, but a strength. It allows us to live according to our values without being swept away by the unpredictable tides of the world. By cultivating this serene mind, you discover that true happiness doesn't lie in seeking instant pleasure or external approval. It comes from the peace of knowing that even in tough times, you have control over how you respond. Happiness, thus, becomes a byproduct of self-control and the ability to live with intention and balance. It's not about eliminating challenges or pain, but learning to navigate them with the tranquility of someone who knows true fulfillment lies in their ability to stand firm amid life's storms. This is the power of the Stoic mind. Not to chase happiness, but to become someone capable of living well, no matter what life brings. In the next section, we'll explore how the pursuit of happiness may actually be pulling us away from what truly matters. Our true fulfillment. Pursuing happiness seems like a universal goal, doesn't it? We all want to be happy, and society constantly tells us that happiness is out there, waiting for us once we reach the next milestone. However, this cycle of relentless pursuit can be deeply destructive. By focusing all our energy on achieving an ideal state of happiness, we end up getting lost in unrealistic expectations and external pressures. Instead of living in the present moment, we're always looking to the future, waiting for something to change so happiness can finally happen. The Stoics teach us that this unsustainable pursuit of happiness is actually pulling us away from true fulfillment and inner peace. Stoicism offers a radical alternative. Instead of chasing happiness that's always out of reach, we should focus on what we can control: our mind, our attitudes, and our thoughts. True freedom comes when we stop expecting the world to give us what we desire and start living according to what we can transform within ourselves. This doesn't mean abandoning our desires or stopping our pursuit of growth and fulfillment, but doing so with a clear understanding that happiness doesn't come from outside. It's an internal construction, the result of our daily choices and alignment with virtue and self-awareness. By adopting Stoic philosophy, you begin to see that happiness isn't a destination to be reached, but a state of being that emerges when you live according to your highest principles. It doesn't depend on changing external circumstances, but on how you choose to respond to them. By stopping the pursuit of happiness, you become more focused on what truly matters, living a life with purpose, balance, and inner peace. Stoicism teaches us that true fulfillment doesn't come from escaping pain or chasing pleasure, but from constant learning, acceptance, and control over our own minds. Let's now understand how this translates into a life of emotional self-sufficiency and lasting happiness in the next section. In today's society, it's easy to get lost in the idea that we always need more to be happy. More money, more recognition, more things, more achievements. But what happens when we don't get the more we want? Often we feel empty and dissatisfied, as if something is missing. However, Stoicism teaches us something profoundly transformative. True happiness comes from within, not from more things or external validation. Emotional self-sufficiency, as the Stoics propose, is the key to achieving lasting peace and happiness that doesn't depend on external circumstances. By cultivating this self-sufficiency, we free ourselves from the need to seek outside what we can already find within. Epictetus reminds us, it's not the things that happen to us, but how we react to them, that affects us. This means our happiness shouldn't depend on things we cannot control, like others' opinions, successes or failures, or life circumstances. Instead, our happiness should be cultivated through mastering our minds, controlling our emotions, and accepting what we cannot change. When you learn to be emotionally self-sufficient, you discover you don't need more to be happy. You are already complete. True freedom comes when you stop comparing yourself to others and start valuing what you already have within. Peace, balance, and control over your own thoughts. Emotional self-sufficiency is a constant practice. It requires developing the ability to stay serene, even in adversity, and to stop seeking outside what can only be found within. By doing so, you create a space of tranquility and contentment that doesn't depend on external conditions. You learn that true wealth lies in the ability to be happy regardless of circumstances. This doesn't mean not wanting to improve or achieve, but that your happiness is no longer determined by what you have or lack. It comes from aligning with your own values and accepting life as it is. This is the secret to true emotional self-sufficiency and the path to lasting, fulfilling happiness. In the next section, we'll explore how the Stoics teach us not to make happiness the center of our lives, but to live for what truly matters. We live in a society that places happiness as the pinnacle of all our efforts. It seems we're programmed to seek happiness as if it were the ultimate prize of life, the reward for all our work and sacrifice. Happiness becomes the central goal, a kind of mirage always ahead, always out of reach, but motivating us to keep moving forward tirelessly. However, Stoicism offers a profoundly transformative perspective. Happiness shouldn't be the primary focus of our lives. The true purpose isn't to be happy at all costs, but to live according to reason, virtue, and self-control. For the Stoics, happiness isn't a goal, but a natural byproduct of a life lived with integrity and wisdom. By moving away from the idea that happiness should be our sole pursuit, we begin to understand that it arises spontaneously when we dedicate ourselves to living authentically and aligned with our deepest values. Marcus Aurelius, one of the greatest Stoic philosophers, reminds us that happiness depends on ourselves. This means that instead of waiting for the world to give us reasons to be happy, we must find inner peace by realizing that regardless of external circumstances, we have the power to choose how to respond. It's not about ignoring suffering or pain, but recognizing that ultimately what matters is how we face these adversities. When we focus on cultivating virtues like wisdom, courage, and temperance, happiness becomes a reflection of our ability to live according to these principles. The Stoics teach us that happiness isn't something we should pursue directly, as if it were a prize waiting at the end of a race. Instead, true and lasting happiness emerges when we live with a greater purpose. When we dedicate ourselves to developing our minds, improving our character, and contributing to the greater good, we begin to experience an inner satisfaction that doesn't depend on external recognition or material success. True fulfillment isn't in acquiring possessions or status, but in living a meaningful life aligned with the principles of virtue and reason. It's in this alignment that we find a happiness that isn't fleeting but lasting and profound, a happiness that is no longer a distant goal, but a consequence of our way of living. By making virtue the center of our lives, we come to understand that ultimately, happiness is in our hands, but not in the way we imagine. It's not the result of chasing pleasure or escaping life's difficulties. Instead, it's the reflection of our ability to live with balance, purpose, and intention. The Stoics show us that instead of getting lost in the constant desire for more, we should focus on what truly matters: being better people, acting with integrity, and doing good. This is the path to true freedom, a freedom not given by circumstances, but cultivated within us. Happiness, thus, becomes a natural byproduct of this inner journey of self-awareness, virtue, and growth. It's not the end point, but the serenity that emerges along the way. This shift in focus, from living to achieve happiness to living with purpose, can be the key to the emotional freedom we so deeply seek. By focusing on what truly matters, our integrity, our values, and our impact on the world, happiness begins to manifest in a more authentic and profound way. It's no longer something to be forced or chased, but something that flows from our connection to what's most important. When we free ourselves from the pressure to be happy all the time, we learn to embrace life in its entirety, with its joys and challenges, knowing that true fulfillment comes from living fully, with virtue and intention. And in doing so, happiness becomes not just possible, but inevitable. Now that you've discovered the true path to fulfillment, the question is, what will you do with this knowledge? Stoic philosophy teaches us that true happiness isn't something to be frantically pursued, but something that arises naturally when we live according to our highest principles. So ask yourself, are you ready to stop seeking happiness in what's outside of you and start finding it in your own mind and heart? What truly matters to you? What are you willing to do to live a life of purpose, balance, and virtue? If you feel it's time to stop getting lost in the relentless pursuit of happiness and start living with more intention, this is the first step toward transformation. And remember, true freedom comes from control over your own mind. By embracing Stoic principles, you'll realize that inner peace and true fulfillment aren't distant. They're already within you. Now I invite you to reflect on this and share your thoughts in the comments below. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel and turn on the notification bell to continue this journey of self-awareness and growth.